Hey everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Silhouette Secrets Plus, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you some tips for using the Silhouette Heat Foil pen. I will be demonstrating with the Silhouette Cameo 5 and using heat foil on the Silhouette Leatherette sheets. I highly recommend this product if you are wanting to get into and play around with Leatherette. The reason I recommend this to start with is because it's consistent. If you have ever worked with Leatherette or faux leathers, you will know that there is a huge difference between the brand, color, backing. There are a lot of variables with what is called faux leather or Leatherette. It's just a huge, broad topic. So I recommend the Silhouette Leatherette sheets just so you can eliminate a lot of the factors that cause user errors or user problems when working with that material. So I know how this cuts. I know how it's going to foil, which I will show you here. And I have some tips and some do not do tips for your success with the Silhouette Heat Foil pen with any materials. So all of the tips that are in today's demonstration, you can use for cardstock, you can use for foiling on other faux leathers or other materials that you want to get started with. Now, this is just one project that you can create with the Silhouette Heat Pen. So let's go ahead and get started. The first tip I'm going to share right off the bat with you is think about your project. So here is a look at where I started with this project because I got so excited for it, and I set it up at the top left of my cutting mat. You do not want to do that because if you are cutting the material after you foil it, then you have to remove that foil and you cannot unload your cutting mat. I realized that too late because I was so excited to get started with this project. So I want to share that right off the bat. However, I am going to show you the setup video for it because I show you how to create the design that I used for a keychain. So we are going to be using the Silhouette Heat Pen. You could also use the foil quill in older model machines if you do not have the powered tool housing for a Silhouette Cameo 5, Portrait 4, or the Curio 2. And then I used the silver Silhouette foil along with this is how we finished it out. So I made this keychain. You can also grab this snowflake design in the description below. I have a link for how you can get that. This is a design that I drew in the Silhouette Studio software, and I'm going to show you how to create this design right here, this double-sided keychain or bag tag. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing I want to share with you is I'm using a sheet of the Silhouette Leatherette that a previous project had failed on this past week. So you're going to see that I do have a shape at the bottom right of this, but I want to use this full sheet and I'm going to show you how to maximize that. So in the Silhouette Studio software, I am opening up the snowflake design. You could use any design to create this and create a bag tag or a keychain with it. So then I'm just going to grab one of these snowflakes and I'm making a copy of it, and then I'm going to place it onto my design mat. I have set it up with a letter size sheet of material on the media size, and that allows me to have the same size for my Silhouette Leatherette. Then I am going in and I'm making an offset of this that's going to create the outer edge of that keychain or bag tag. Just the outer edge of the project. And you can play around with this. It will depend on the actual design to see what works the best for that. Now I'm going to open the replicate panel because I want to replicate mirrored the other side of this design so that when we fold it together, it is going to be an identical copy. Now it's a snowflake that should be identical, but it just really depends on your design. Then I'm going to grab the draw rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a rectangle in between the two of these. And this is going to be what is the keychain connector or the bag tag connector that we can apply to. And then I'm using the scale tools in the top quick access toolbar, and I'm going to adjust that to 0.5 inches. And then I grouped this together. So I grouped the snowflake with the offset on the left so that I could align the center, and then I ungrouped it again. So that way that rectangle was in the center. I made a copy before I weld this together so that I will always have that original to go back to if I want to change that. And then I selected the two offsets and the rectangle, and I'm going to weld those. I had a little tiny piece there in the middle That's easy to get rid of. I just release the compound path and then I clicked off to deselect that outer edge. And with the little tiny piece, I hit delete and it's gone. So now I have the design created for this foil design that I'm going to do on the leatherette. So at this point in the process, I am trying to decide if I want to foil on both sides of this keychain or not. I decided I was just going to keep it simple, do one side of the keychain for the demo video, and then I'm going to select everything. Now here is the first do not. You do not want to place your foil designs in the top left corner as we are usually typically used to when we are cutting. Wanted to show you this process simply because I showed how to create that design, but I'm going to decrease that transparency so I am able to place the materials onto my cutting mat in the exact location. I will show you what I do recommend later on in this video for the second design that I did foil. This was what I did first because I got so excited and I wanted to share that process with you, as well as the creation of this design too, because I think it's very important to see the things that can go wrong and that it happens to everybody. So I am just, again, trying to decide if I wanted to do that double-sided. If you do double-sided, you do want to flip that design as well as the offset so that you have it matching on the other side as well. And that's really just design dependent. I did change the line color to blue so that when I click on the send tab here, it is going to first tell me with my heat pen in my machine if I want to turn it on. It takes 3 minutes for it to heat up in the Silhouette Cameo 5, Portrait 4, or Curio 2 with that powered housing. So whatever tool you are using, you do need to heat that up. And then I have set 2 line colors. I'm going to turn off the cut lines because I want it to foil first. The cross hatched area there is the design that's outside of my cutting mat. So you're going to see that there's 3 different line color options, but the one that's transparent is the files that are outside of my cutting mat. I'm going to come in and I'm going to set up my cut selection. It's for Leatherette. You do want to test cut. I did find that this setting cut a little bit too deep, even though it used to cut perfectly. Now for the heat foil, I chose cardstock textured and it did not pop up a setting. I changed that to Tool 2 and it recognized that I had the foil pen in, but there was no setting under cardstock textured. There was also no setting for cardstock plain. It tells me the heat pen is heating up, but it has no settings for that under those materials. That is not a problem. I'm going to show you how you can create your own setting for the heat pen. It is detected. I'm going to click on More in the bottom there, that little More button, and I'm going to go into the material settings. I'm going to create my own setting by clicking on the plus sign, and then I'm going to name that setting so I can use it for future use. And then I'm going to select my machine, and I wanted to remove this action, but I first needed to you're going to see here, I tried to delete it and it kicked me back to the window. I need to go into Carriage 2 first, and then I'm going to set up the plus sign with a foil action. That is going to give me that action for the heat pen. I'm going to click on Craft Cut and I'm going to remove that action. And then I changed the force down to a 10. Again, test with your materials for what is going to work with the foil. And you do not want it to be too much force. You do not want it to be a heavy emboss on the material. Sometimes you might be looking for that, but that can get problematic in the lifespan on your tool. Now I can come back after clicking that big X and come back and choose Heat Foil Faux Leatherette, and I have a force of 10. So I have all my settings set up. It is recognized in there. And then I'm going to pop over and set up my cutting mat. Now, while the heat pen is heating up, it's a great time to set up your materials. Again, I do not recommend putting it in the top left, but I want to show you how I got myself into this situation. So you do want to make sure that your foil is secure, and I would recommend not having the tape go underneath your rollers. That can be problematic as well. And I learned this from a friend and colleague, Barbara Foster. When you're taping foil, you want to do corner to corner on each, and then you can adjust it from there. You do not want to have too much slack in your foil, or it can get caught up and bind up and stuck in there. So Here is where I really realized what I had gotten myself into. I grabbed a pair of tweezers and I just carefully removed that. I did debate on whether just unloading it and crossing my fingers and stopping the entire recording, but I wanted to show you. I did get it out and without removing my cutting mat. I just carefully did that and then I sent it to cut. You do not want to send to cut over top of that foil because if you think about it, it's going to dull your blade because of the foil material. Check your cut before you remove it from the cutting mat, and if you needed to, you could send it again. Here's a close-up look at this design, and you want to test with all of your materials. Your force is going to depend on your materials. You can see there's a few skipped areas there. Different materials will take that foil a little bit differently. So I then placed the faux leather at the bottom of my cutting mat, which is much easier to remove, and I set up my design in the area. I matched the grid on my cutting mat to the grid here. I drew a box that is 8.5 inches by 11 inches that simulates my 11-inch sheet of material. I am centering it to the left and the bottom. That is going to kind of give me an idea of where my placement is for that leatherette. And then I am looking at my cutting mat and at my on-screen mat to line that up so I can use up that material in the location where it's at. And then I moved my template off of my screen and saved my design. Once I have my file saved, in the first one, you'll notice that I did an outline only. That is the outer edge cut line. This one I'm going to set up with a fill. So I'm going to click on the specialty tools panel, choose the heat pen, and then I chose the crosshatched pattern and I adjusted it as I thought would be a good fit. The only way to know what is going to look good is to actually test it and see what works for your design and for your materials. Then I came back to the send tab. I unchecked the red for the cut line and I checked the foil option. Now, here's where I had a little bit of a dilemma. I wanted to double check, so I clicked back on the design tab, brought my template back in, and I want to double check the placement just because I wanted it to line up, especially when you're working at the bottom half of your cutting mat and I'm working with a specific area on my material. So I was just double checking that it was going to line up and be a good cut since I had a design at the bottom there. I set up my foil in the location I thought my design was. You do not want to stick that foil to your adhesive on your cutting mat either, because then your cutting mat will instantly stick to that foil and leave your cutting mat nicely foiled. I had to grab some additional washi tape because I ran out of the Silhouette washi tape, and I was off by just a little bit, which is what you'll see here in the finished photos, but that is my second do not. You want to make sure that your foil covers your entire design. I was off by just a little bit, as you'll see. And with this one, or anything that has a fill, such as a heat foil design, a sketch design, or an etch design, then it's going to take longer to complete that. And that is dependent on the size of your design. The fill that you have selected, smaller spacing, is going to take longer. So I had a cross-hatched pattern here. It's going to have to go over it twice. So you want to keep that in mind. All designs are going to vary in the actual time it takes to complete the process. Just make sure to watch your machine, that nothing is getting stuck while it is doing that design. Once it is finished, it is going to move with the blade housing to the starting location. I can remove my heat foil carefully, try not to get it stuck to your cutting mat, and then I can send this design to be cut in that location. And I mean, you'll see here in just a second with the close-up photos, I was off by just a fraction. With the 3-inch foil, that is the Silhouette foil width, it can be a little bit trickier to get those designs lined up. You can try different things such as doubling it up, but sometimes that can have a negative effect as well. So here is a close-up look at this design. You can see on the right-hand side, there's just a tiny, tiny bit that the foil just barely missed. That's okay. Every single project I do, not everything goes 100% perfect, but I still wanted to show the process. Now, I still have a leatherette left that has empty space on it, so I added another design. These are snowflake earrings that I created with doing the offset and then welding a circle to the top. Here's a look at where I placed the foil to have those objects foiled, and a look at where it is foiled. Make sure your tape does not interfere with your design as well, because the tape, it won't foil as well underneath that area. And then I still had more space, so I did another little design. Here's a look at a fringe that is made into a tassel, and I then assembled all of these using some Fabri-Tac, and they went together nicely. So you want to make sure to spread the glue well on those. Here's a look at me putting this tassel together. It's similar to the tassel that's shown on the front of the leatherette for the Silhouette packaging, and I just rolled that together, and then just make sure to let it dry completely before you use it or add it onto anything. So I was just adding that on there. That was the first part that I glued together. When you're putting this together, like the bag tag that will be next in the assembly process, with this leatherette, it is very flexible, so I was able to add the keychain onto it before I even glued it together. Make sure that there's enough, but not too much, that it's seeping out of the edges, and then press that together. You may also want to place it underneath a heavy object just to keep it flat while that glue and adhesive dries. Make sure to check out the links in the description below for additional information on faux leather and cutting faux leather, but here's a look at the finished projects once they were completely done. So I have a couple sets of earrings. I did use up most of that sheet of the faux leather, even though I had a failed project to start with. I used the remaining space and maximized that to create even more designs. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and I hope that this has helped you to be successful with your Silhouette heat pen or the foil quill.